A man believed he had rescued a puppy, but when he brought it to the vet, he was shocked to learn what the animal actually was. Brian covered his head with his jacket like rain protection and ran from his car to his front door. A quiet crying sound reached his ears and made him stop. Even with the heavy rain falling, he felt curious and wanted to see what was making the noise. He followed the sound, his shoes making wet sounds on the soaked grass. At the side of his yard, hidden in some bushes, he found a small, shaking animal. The tiny creature was rolled up under a flower bush, completely wet and shaking hard. When Brian moved closer slowly, he could see its messy gray-brown fur covered with dirt and its scared little eyes watching him. The animal was stronger and bigger than he thought it should be for such a young creature with very large paws, but in the rain and dark, Brian couldn't figure out what made it look strange. Believing it was a lost puppy, he felt his heart warm up seeing it. He began speaking softly, saying kind words to help the small animal come to him, giving it comfort and protection. Since it needed help so much, the creature slowly came toward Brian's open hand. He lifted it up, surprised by how heavy it was, covered it with his jacket, and quickly went back inside. His home felt cozy and warm, smelling like damp wood from the rain and gentle jazz music that Brian always had playing for his plants. He placed the creature on a soft towel by the fireplace, drying it and looking at it more carefully. As he gently wiped away the dirt and mud, Brian started to see strange things. The animal's nose area was wider than normal puppies. Its shoulders looked too big for its age, and as the fur got dry, light spotted patterns began to show through the gray-brown hair. "What type of dog are you?" he said out loud, though something inside told him this wasn't quite normal. Brian got more curious as he warmed up some milk and chicken, which the creature ate very eagerly. His first idea that it was a regular puppy began to disappear as he watched its quick, alert looks and a strange silence that didn't match a young dog's normal playful ways. He also saw how Atlas held its head when paying attention, with a special way of standing that seemed stronger than any puppy he'd seen. The way it smelled things was different too, more complete and with purpose. Sitting near the fire, Brian watched the creature curl up and go to sleep. His thoughts were full of questions about where it might have come from and why it was alone. "I'll bring you to the vet tomorrow," he said quietly to the sleeping animal. "Maybe they can find your family." But for that night, he would give a home and warmth to this strange little visitor whose coming seemed as quick and strong as the storm outside. The weekend started bright and sunny, totally different from the stormy night when Brian first discovered his puzzling friend. After his normal Saturday morning walk and breakfast, Brian got Atlas ready for their visit to the vet. Brian tried to make things enjoyable with a new stuffed toy and some fun talking, but Atlas was strangely quiet, looking out the window, paying attention to the world outside. Brian couldn't help but feel worried and mixed up. "Come on, boy, don't you want to play?" he asked, shaking the toy. Why wasn't Atlas behaving like a normal puppy? His thoughts were full of ideas, but he pushed away the worried feeling, thinking it was because of the creature's unknown history and recent hard times. "Okay, let's go see the doctor," Brian said as he put on a temporary leash. At the animal hospital, the person at the front desk said that Dr. Sarah Mitchell couldn't see them because of a family problem, and Dr. Ryan Wilson would help them the next week. Feeling let down, Brian drove home with Atlas, who seemed surprisingly happy in the back seat. During the next few days, Brian gave his friend the name Atlas and saw more and more weird behaviors. Atlas walked around the living room with careful steps every morning, didn't care about any of the toys Brian got, and stared hard out the window. The nights were more troubling. Atlas would sit next to Brian's bed, making deep, wild crying sounds that filled the darkness. "What are you trying to say to me, Atlas?" Brian would whisper in the dark. Curious and a bit worried, Brian used his blog, a small website that first talked about his computer programming job and weekend hiking. As a 30-year-old software worker, he began writing about Atlas's actions, sharing videos and careful notes along with his usual posts. One specific post, called "Is My Puppy Not a Puppy?" caught his readers' attention right away, causing a lot of curiosity and interest. Comments came fast, going from funny jokes to real concern. Readers filled the blog with ideas, some thinking that Atlas might be a rare type, a wolf-dog mix, or possibly a wild animal. Several people pointed out the unusual spotted marks they could see in Brian's pictures and the animal's special build. "That's not a normal dog," one person wrote. "Look at those shoulders and that nose shape." Another said, "Those spots and the way it moves, have you thought it might be something wild?" The talk grew as local animal fans and experts shared their thoughts. A few saw Atlas's extra awareness and nighttime crying as signs that it could be wild. Others came up with more specific ideas, with one wildlife fan writing, "I don't want to say this, but some of those body features make me think of young hyenas I've seen in nature shows." Brian's curiosity became a strong desire to learn the truth. His detailed blog posts about Atlas's strange behaviors got a growing number of worried readers. After days of online guessing and his own growing worry, Brian made an appointment with Dr. Ryan Wilson, hoping for answers that would change everything. When they got there, the clinic was full with the usual types of neighborhood pet problems: a Labrador with a hurt leg, a cat making angry sounds from its box, and a group of worried owners. Brian felt the tight feeling of worry and excitement grow in his stomach. He held Atlas's leash tighter as they went into the waiting room. Atlas's presence right away got strange looks. A woman with a poodle whispered something quickly to her friend, quietly pointing toward Brian and Atlas. Her big eyes showed a mix of curiosity and maybe concern. The friend, a heavy man with a calm golden retriever, looked at Atlas more closely, seeing the animal's special spotted coat and unusual build. He quickly looked away when Brian saw him staring. "Is that really a dog?" he heard someone whisper. "Look at those marks, and that bone shape," came another quiet comment. As their waiting continued, Brian could feel everyone staring, the whispered guesses adding to his own spinning thoughts. Was Atlas really just a rare type, or something more? Each whisper seemed to repeat his doubts, making the strange events of the past week feel even more real. Finally, their number was called. As they walked toward the examination room, Atlas got tense, its body becoming stiff. The unfamiliar smells of other animals and cleaning products seemed to wake up something wild in the young creature. Brian tried to calm it with a gentle touch, but just as they got close to the door, Atlas's wild nature suddenly came out. With a quick, strong pull, it got away from Brian's hold and ran off. Complete disorder started in the waiting area. The Labrador barked loudly, the cat screamed from its box, and children cried out as Atlas ran in zigzags through the chair legs and surprised patients. Brian's heart beat fast as he called out, chasing after the moving blur of fur that was Atlas. The vet's helper, a quick-thinking young man named Marcus, ran after them. "Come back! Atlas, come back!" Brian yelled. The chase ended when Marcus trapped Atlas in a storage room filled with pet supplies. Breathing hard, Brian and Marcus finally caught Atlas, whose big, scared eyes and heavy breathing showed its complete fear. On their way back to the examination room, Brian said sorry over and over to the other pet owners, his face showing deep shame and real worry. "I'm so sorry, everyone. He doesn't usually act like this," Brian said to the room full of concerned faces. Inside the vet's office, Dr. Ryan Wilson stood waiting with a raised eyebrow and a calm look. "Quite the active one, isn't it?" Dr. Wilson said as he quietly closed the door behind them. The room became silent, except for the sound of Atlas's heavy breathing, now held firmly by Marcus. Brian nodded, his worried eyes meeting the vet's experienced ones, full of questions and needing answers badly. As Dr. Wilson was putting on new gloves to start the examination, Brian's mind raced with the possibilities of what might happen. Could this finally be the moment of truth about Atlas's real identity? Dr. Wilson, an experienced veterinarian with many years of practice, came close to Atlas with immediate understanding in his eyes. He started by watching Atlas from far away first, seeing the special spotted marks now clearly visible on the gray-brown coat, the strong bone shape, and the typical wide shoulders. "I need to examine this animal very carefully," he told Marcus quietly. When he began touching Atlas's stomach, his hands moving expertly yet gently over the creature's body, Atlas stayed surprisingly quiet, as if understanding the doctor's skill. Atlas's eyes moved around the room, seeing every detail with the intense awareness of a wild animal. Every now and then, curious faces showed up at the clear window that looked in from the waiting room, drawn by the earlier trouble. As Dr. Wilson opened Atlas's mouth to check its teeth, his face became very serious. "Sorry for the interruption. Before we continue with the story, I kindly ask you to like the video and subscribe to this channel. It is very important for us. Thank you very much." The teeth clearly belonged to a meat-eating hunter, razor-sharp fangs built for ripping flesh, and special jaw muscles that no house dog had. The skull's shape, how wide the snout was, and those telling spotted patches all proved what he had guessed the second Atlas came through the door. These fangs, this jaw shape, those unique spotted patches. Dr. Wilson mumbled, his words fading as he backed away. He moved backward, his eyes getting bigger as he understood how serious this was. Dr. Wilson's expression mixed worry and curiosity as he began asking questions, starting with normal ones but getting more direct as he checked his notes again. "What do you call this animal?" he asked, staring hard over his glasses. "Where did you find him? How long have you owned him? Is this your first vet visit with him?" Brian answered, telling how he had discovered Atlas after the big storm, believing it was a stray puppy. "I found him hiding in the bushes during that huge storm last week," Brian said. "He was tiny and terrified. I figured somebody had lost their puppy." With every response, Dr. Wilson's eyebrows rose higher, his actions got faster, and tension filled the air. After firing off questions rapidly, he faced his helper Marcus, shook his head in shock, and delivered the stunning news. "This isn't a puppy, Brian," Dr. Wilson announced, his voice serious and heavy. "You've brought me a baby hyena." "A what?" Brian choked out, stumbling backward. "That can't be right." "Just look at him." Dr. Wilson, realizing his news might have frightened Brian, quickly worked to take charge of the situation. He faced Brian, now speaking more calmly. "I know this is really shocking, but you've brought in a young spotted hyena. It's extremely unusual to see them around here, and we need to be very careful about this." The truth seemed more believable now, as Brian stared at Atlas differently. The spotted patterns were easy to see under the clinic's harsh lights. The strong body made perfect sense, and even the strange behaviors he'd blamed on hurt feelings suddenly formed a new picture. The animal's sharp awareness, the unique crying sounds, how it moved. Everything clicked into place. "But he's been so sweet," Brian argued. "He sleeps on my sofa, drinks from a dish." The doctor kept explaining what this discovery meant. Hyenas weren't just weird, but possibly dangerous, and they definitely couldn't live in someone's house. They needed special care and places that could deal with their wild nature and requirements. As Dr. Wilson called animal control right away, and contacted a nearby wildlife rescue, the room filled with new movement. Understanding they needed to act fast and safely, Doctor. Wilson quietly told Marcus to get a cage ready. "Make it roomy and cozy," he said softly, ensuring their steps were both cautious and kind. Brian, seeing these preparations, worried about what seemed like rough treatment for Atlas, who had never been mean. "Please, he's never harmed anybody," Brian begged. "Can't we do something else?" Dr. Wilson put a comforting hand on Brian's shoulder. "I get why you're worried, Brian," Dr. Wilson said kindly, "but this isn't about punishing him. Hyenas are wild creatures, and even though Atlas hasn't been aggressive, we have to think about safety first for him and everyone around. The cage is just protection to keep everyone safe, including Atlas, until we can get him somewhere that fits his wild nature better." Dr. Wilson said more, explaining that hyenas, even babies, could be unpredictable and possibly dangerous, especially in strange or stressful places like animal hospitals. He showed Brian the big cage made ready for Atlas, filled with comfortable things to help calm the animal while keeping the clinic workers and other animals safe. This careful and caring approach made Brian feel somewhat better as he tried to understand the shocking news. Dr. Wilson's quiet skill helped calm Brian's first surprise, giving him a clear plan for handling this rare and unexpected problem. The feeling in the room changed to focused quiet as they got ready to safely hold Atlas for now, while setting up his move to a better place for a wild animal like him. As Marcus gently carried Atlas in his new cage to a quieter room away from the busy clinic, Brian watched sadly. Seeing Atlas's big, sad eyes staring through the bars made Brian feel guilty. He couldn't stop feeling responsible for Atlas's situation, even though he knew this was what had to happen. "I'm sorry, friend," Brian whispered to the cage. "I thought I was doing something good for you." Sitting by himself with Atlas in the dark, quiet room, Brian felt how heavy the day's discoveries were. Even with this unexpected twist, he understood that from the moment he brought Atlas home, something had always seemed different. This wasn't just about saving what he thought was a lost puppy. It was about the friendship that had started growing between them, a bond that went deeper than Atlas's wild side. As they waited for the wildlife people to come and take Atlas to their care, the young hyena seemed to sense Brian's mixed feelings. Quietly, Atlas moved closer to the cage side nearest Brian's chair. Unsure but hopeful, Brian reached out, stretching his hand toward the animal. Atlas answered with a soft lick on Brian's finger and a gentle bump of his head against Brian's hand, a quiet sign of thanks and goodbye. "You're going to be fine," Brian said quietly. "They'll look after you well where you're headed." In that short moment, they felt a strong connection, showing the friendship they had built in their brief time together. Watching Atlas settle down more peacefully in the cage now, looking less scared and more comfortable, Brian felt completely sure he was doing the right thing. This moment of understanding gave him quiet peace, knowing he had helped a wild animal that had surprisingly changed his life. In saying farewell to Atlas, Brian learned how important it is to understand and respect wild animals. Did you like this story? Would you have allowed Atlas to go to the wildlife sanctuary, or would you have chosen to keep him? Share your thoughts in the comments. If you enjoyed the story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and give it a thumbs up. Sometimes we only realize what we're truly caring for when we take a closer look. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you in the next video. Wishing you a wonderful day.